increase. Okay, well let's look at deforestation, because we've looked at the global warming impact of meat consumption. I haven't even touched on dairy yet, but let's look at deforestation, which is a related issue, because much of our greenhouse problem is derived from the fact that we are destroying our forests, the great carbon sinks. Now, why is livestock relevant to deforestation? Well, the key reason is the inefficiency of producing food in the form of meat. These days, with ever-increasing efficiency of production, it takes around 13 kilograms of grain fed to cattle to produce 1 kilogram of meat. 13 kilograms of grain to produce 1 kilogram. Despite the fact that we've got around 800 million people starving in this planet that we all share, most of the corn and soy produced in the world goes to cattle, pigs, and chickens. That could go directly to humans. And the impact of 13 kilos of grain to 1 kilo of beef means that we need an awful lot more land to feed the animals, to then feed us, than if the corn and soy and everything else, all those other nutritious grains, went straight to the people. The FAO, the UN FAO, says that 70% of the Amazon rainforest has been destroyed to make way for pastures, for animal grazing. 70%, and it's still going. Earlier this year, the President of Brazil announced emergency measures to try to stop the destruction, Whether he'll succeed, who knows. In the 5 months prior to that, another 320,000 hectares had been burned or cut to make way for grazing. In Australia alone, since white settlement, over 70 million hectares of forest have been destroyed for grazing. More than 50% of this continent is used for sheep and cattle grazing. And the sheep are used for wool. Wool is also a major problem. So we're losing this forest. Just recently, the US Agriculture Department announced that it's going to convert 6 million acres of conservation land to crop production. Okay, so it's totally inefficient. Okay, water supply. Where are we going with water supply? Does anyone here know how much of Victoria's water consumption can be attributed to direct household usage through taps and toilets, just around the house?
Like 30% or something.
How much was that, Jim?
30.
No. Anyone else?
8%.
8%. They're the most recent figures from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. They're 2004-2005 figures. How much would be attributed to agriculture? Anyone care to guess? 65%. 51% is animal agriculture. 34% is the dairy industry alone. The UNESCO estimates that it takes 1,000 litres of water to produce 1 litre of cow's milk. So when you get that litre of milk from the fridge, you're sucking water out of the Murray and our other great rivers. Where that water is helping to irrigate the pasture for dairy cows and others. Professor Wayne Meyer, formerly the CSIRO, currently with the University of Adelaide, has estimated that in Australia it takes between 50,000 and 100,000 litres of water to produce 1 kilo of beef. Now, 50,000 litres of water is about the same as your average backyard swimming pool. So the family barbecue around the pool is using all that water next to you to make that kilo of beef. Different organisations have different figures. UNESCO says it's about 17,000. They're taking different figures into account. But that's way above rice or other things you might hear about. You might hear that rice is terrible. It's way below beef. Other researchers, Ian Rutherford at Melbourne University, has estimated that 90% of household water consumption is indirect consumption through purchases, mainly food purchases, mainly animal production. Using his figures, you can calculate that if a person went from an average meat and dairy diet to one which was completely plant-based, they would save around 900,000 litres of water a year, 18 swimming pools per year. Now, how much would you save from having gone from an average shower before restrictions to a 4-minute shower with a 3-star shower head? You would have saved 20,000 litres. So 20,000 litres here, 900,000 litres here. My scale might not be completely accurate, but I think you get the picture. Now, my third point tonight is, why are we not told about this? Our state government, for example, and they're not the only culprits, for example, spend a lot of money on advertisements with black balloons telling us to turn off, or encouraging us to turn off appliances. Our former Premier spent time in a helicopter in advertisements telling us what the state's doing about water infrastructure. But they say nothing about diet. Now, Steve Braggs in 1999 said that his government would be distinguished from that of his predecessor by crediting the people of this state with the intelligence to make their own judgments. And all I ask is, why are we not told? Now, think back to Ross Garnaut's comments about the vested interests being too numerous and too intense to allow rational policy making. Meat and Livestock Australia in 2007 was awarded Advertiser of the Year by the Writers and Art Directors Association in Australia for their promotion of meat sales in Australia and overseas. They've used world-renowned actors like Sandbelt to tell us that we should eat more meat. Now, I remember it was not so long ago that we used to be told on TV that it's okay to smoke cigarettes. Do you remember Hoax? Anyhow, have a Winfield. I can imagine Sam Neill saying, anyhow, have a steak. Sam, I'm not convinced. It's perfectly possible. It's easy to get a perfectly nutritious diet on plant-based food. Now, my final point is pricing. Because food needs to be priced and water needs to be priced at a level which takes into account the full cost of supplying them. At the moment, there are externalities. Externalities are, it's an economics term which says that people who are not parties to the transaction are paying part of the cost. If I don't buy steak, I'm still paying the cost because my environment that I share with everybody else is being damaged. The water supply, the rivers are dying. The politicians don't tell us that Murray's dying because of too much water being drawn out of it. It's because of the drought. The drought. But what can the community do to help it? And we have to allow for realistic pricing. So in summary, we have a crisis. We have a major crisis on our hands with no time to lose. We have an easy measure which might need some adjustment. But it's an easy measure that we can all adopt to help the problem. We have potentially catastrophic circumstances, global warming, deforestation and water supply. And we need to tell people what they can do to help fix the problem. I'll leave you with some words from Dr. Barney Ferran, who was with the CSIRO and who was involved. He led the team who prepared the Balancing Act report. And he said that we need to pay more for products which have a high environmental account balance. The consumer should be expected to pay a realistic price for food so that we can help fix the problems in the bush instead of sitting in town wringing our hands about it. I hope I've given you tonight some information which will enable you and encourage you to do a lot more than just wring your hands. Mr. Toastmaster.